Well, thanks for joining us. Today on the Manolo Show, we are here discussing how to get an amazing backlink from the other side of the planet.
That sounds awesome. How did we do that?
I don't know. We put out really good content.
Oh, thanks.
Somebody found our content and they referenced us in one of their blog posts.
They did.
It's pretty fantastic. Thanks, Guy. Appreciate it.
Very minor, but hey, pretty cool, right? So, but that's not actually what we're talking about today.
I didn't think so.
Yeah.
I was about to say, wow. I looked up the wrong topic.
This episode should have been called From Guy in Parking Lot to Guy on Internet. How to be found.
That's right.
And X.
And X.
And X, yeah. But today we're talking about how to prevent common mistakes in software development projects.
I believe
Mistakes
it.
are the worst. They really are. Like, I took a look at the list of the things that we're going to be talking about today, and I can nail, like, exact instances where these have occurred in previous clients that we've had. And, like, how it directly relates to missed deadlines or unhappiness on either end. Not that we have a lot of unhappiness on either end, but still.
That's kind of why I put them.
Yeah, it's almost like it was smart. Good job.
Yep.
Proof.
And we pick up projects because, previous projects have failed because of these mistakes.
That's
right?
true.
And we pick them up and bring them to the finish line.
Yeah. We people get fired and we get hired for it.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah.
Is that a recess? Sorry, not sorry.
Yes. So for us, how to avoid the mistakes, but for all of the other software development companies out there, these are the mistakes you definitely want to make. They will improve your business. Your clients will love you for it. It's going to be a great time. I promise. Do we need to give Monica a second?
Oh, God.
Hey, it's in your intro. You know it. So
Yeah.
Jason's just saying it.
Yep.
So mistake number one, right? Should we go
Yep.
into that?
Mistake number
Yeah.
one.
We probably talk about this particular mistake in almost every software development episode that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
A lack of clear requirements.
Mm-hmm.
When do the requirements get presented in a software project? When does that start?
There's phases to how requirements get defined, right? Stakeholders will typically come up with their own set of requirements, and that will come down to the implementation team, and the implementation team will then develop their own requirements off of those requirements, and then software development teams get involved and help bring the second tier of requirements to more fleshed out functional requirements. So there's different phases, but they always get defined in the discovery phase, which is the first phase of the software development lifecycle.
Where's the disconnect? Like, where does the chain get broken to cause these problems?
Ooh, I know that one.
Yes, Monica, I'm calling on you.
It's usually because poor lack of communication between usually sometimes even the stakeholders or sometimes even both the companies going in or sometimes even the higher ups talking to the people who are on the bottom floor, not talking to everyone. Just poor communication throughout the board, not knowing what is going on and what is even needed. And then halfway throughout the project, they go, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so everybody has a different vision of what this software project or product should be. And then there's one person that communicates that, but something gets lost in the communication between all of those other voices and the primary voice talking to the software development company or team or whatever.
There's no there's no clear requirement or one clear goal across all board, because one person at the bottom could be seeing this is how I'm going to see the final result versus that the person at the top is seeing how the other, and no one's having the same clear requirement. And then when the project's halfway through, everyone's looking kind of like, oh, this is not what we're all seeing together.
That highlights why it's so important to have as many people in the room, or as many different types of people in the room as you can, so that all of those things kind of come to light. Like, you can't just have like the supreme boss of the company and, you know, his henchmen or whatever the case may be, henchmen, because all companies are evil, his henchmen talking about the requirements and not take into account people who would be using the software or people who would be developing the software or people who are actually requesting the software, which usually comes from much lower in the chain of a company. So that all makes sense. So defining requirements.
Yeah, and we're all human, right? Like a requirement could be that they want this section to be blue, right? To be very basic, right? But at the end of the day, they don't really want it blue. They want it potentially a shade of blue.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like you can either take it, verbatim, or you can take the requirement and ask further questions like, well, here's 7 colors of blue. Which of these 7 colors of blue are you interested in?
Yeah. And I guess this highlights why a discovery phase is so important, because you could have a great idea of what your project should be, but there are things that you might not be thinking about, or specifics that you didn't know you needed to line out. Like you said that there's different shades of blue, and some people view shades of purple as blue. Right. So maybe there was a disconnect in perception there too.
Maybe that person's colorblind.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, that's another thing of perspective. If you don't have those voices, you're not going to understand that, color blindness is a thing that you need to pay attention to. So, makes sense. Or you could just care about people. That would work too.
That's right.
What a concept.
Also part of lack of clear requirements, which is what we run into quite a bit, is, what do you want this? Not only what do you want this software application to look like, but how do you want it to function? Right? And what we find is a lot of companies will kind of like scratch note sheet of paper what they want this thing to do, and then just hire a developer, right? Or hire a developer internal or a company and just say, hey, just start developing these requirements.
Yeah.
Right? And then they just start writing code, and all of a sudden they deploy that code to a staging server. And then company A goes to look at it and like, this is not what we wanted.
Yeah.
Right? Well, had you gone through a design phase, which is very easy to do, and very quick to change requirements, you can ask all the questions up front and iterate much quicker. And then once you get in development, it can just move right on forward.
Yeah.
A lot of companies skip the design phase. Even when design is happening, we notice a lot of stakeholders really don't pay much attention. Right, and we have to constantly are you sure this is what you want? This is what it's going to do. Does this match your requirement? Does this check the box on what you're looking for?
Is it because that phase isn't the fancy part? It's not the exciting part of the journey?
I mean, light bulbs definitely do start to go off when we started to present design concepts, and but it isn't until if it's a mobile app, you can actually download an actual staging app on your phone and start to play with it, or pull the application up if it's a web app on their browser, and they can start click around. All their light bulbs start to go off at that moment, right? But we try to eliminate those light bulbs going off to the design phase, right? Because we'd rather a lot less time invested in making tweaks and changes in design than it is to make tweaks during development.
Yeah, I imagine there's an aspect of during the design phase, things are very, shiny, this looks great, it's fantastic, but nobody has anything physically in their hands that they can push buttons on or feel what it feels like, or why isn't this looked like it was designed this way, but why isn't this app working the way the app B on the Play Store functions? Because that's the way I was expecting it to work.
Well, to bring it all home, the more specific you are with your requirements, whatever's in your brain is going to come on the paper.
Right.
Just saying.
So does anybody in the room know the percentage of projects that fail due to poor requirement analysis?
125%.
Close.
It's actually 58.
58.
So close though, Jason.
So, I'm sorry,
close.
that 58% of projects fail because of poor requirements is what we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So more than half of projects are just in the dust because a discovery phase is skipped or communication isn't really enforced, or there's no clear like
Mhm.
plan of attack to handle how to bring all those things into one concise thought.
Right.
Think about that, all of that wasted money, and people.
Software's not cheap. I don't know if people know that.
But then they say it's so expensive. But if you think about it, it could be cheaper if they were just clear from the get go.
Yeah.
If they got all their resources together, quick, clean, simple.
Yeah, that's why discovery phase is an investment. It's like it feels like a chore sometimes, but
It's almost insurance.
yeah, it's preventative maintenance, I guess, right? It's you do this so that your project is going to be successful at the end without problems. And this means deadlines get met and software get launched when it needs to be launched instead of, other things that we'll talk about later.
Yeah, it takes time, but it's worth it. And we talked about that in previous episodes, and I can link that in the show notes below of what those previous episodes were if you guys are curious. But
That's right. Because we know you are.
yeah,
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Talking
Are you
as the viewer that's going to be watching.
I was about to say, I was like, I don't know, you should be curious.
Always be curious.
That's right.
I was like, this is your job. I feel like you should know these things.
ABC.
So I should know these things. I've been flying by the seat of my pants since day one. Oh, man. Sorry.
Number 2.
Hire developers who know what they're doing.
Number 2, poor project management. This is certainly a certainly a big one. We've never really run into this very often. We do a pretty good job of managing projects internally. Most of our client partners also do a decent job of like managing stuff on their end.
Mm-hmm.
But giving them the benefit of the doubt, they're running their business, right, 9 to 5 or whatever it ends up being. So we often take most of the brunt of managing their side of the project on our side. Right?
I feel as if we didn't do that part, if we didn't take on the majority of the project management for our projects, it probably wouldn't be as successful. Not because they're bad businesses or anything like that, but like they're not set up to handle managing a software project. Like that's not what their business is there to do, or to what they're doing in their day to day. They don't have people to specifically do those types of things.
They never went through it. They don't know what it's like.
Yeah.
They hired us, or they hired a different software company to do that said thing. So if you are a different software company and you are not doing that for them, then you are failing them as that software company.
Probably, which is tip number 2 for what all other software companies should do is don't project manage
So then we can get
for your
business.
customers.
Perfect. See, we're just
We're on
lining
the
this
attack
up.
today.
That's right.
Woo!
That's right. So we do manage a lot of our projects, right? Well, I mean, if you actually don't, like, let's talk about if you don't like manage the project. Like, imagine, like, even though it's hard to imagine we're working on a software project and we're not even like really managing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like in our heads, like, Jason's working on this, Monica's working on this, Matt's working on this, Stephanie's working on that. It's like
No accountability.
No accountability.
When is this due?
Yeah.
No checking people's work.
Deadlines will get missed.
Yeah.
People wouldn't know when things
Or
are
what's
due.
a deadline?
Right.
If
Right.
You're not having good project management.
Workflows. We're not understanding when code is going through the pipeline, right? We're not understanding that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're spending more time just inherently not knowing what each other is doing, obviously we're overrunning budgets, right?
Yeah.
So it can get out of hand very, very quickly if a project isn't managed.
Mm-hmm. We're going to lose a lot of clients very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, that just can't happen. I mean, it's
Well, it can happen. We just won't stay in business very long.
right.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the problems with and I don't mean to trash on anybody, but I've got this
Jason.
friend who just got out of college who's a developer, and we can totally have them come in and build this part of the software project or something like that. Like you're not gonna get project management benefits with that sort of thing, because it's just one person operating on their own in their own space. Like they manage their own thing on their own time, and that's just kind of how it goes. But if you've got a company doing it or an entire team doing it, and obviously
Accountability of another person.
yeah, that's going to change a little bit. It's not just the one person managing their own time.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Even hiring developers off of like marketplaces like Upwork or Fiverr, right? Like you know, most companies might go with specific ones because either they're cheaper or they've got good ratings. But I mean, how often are you interviewing these people and asking them, "Hey, how do you manage your projects?"
Yeah,
Right.
and along those lines, you'll probably get like the initial, "Here's what my project is," and then you won't hear anything until it's, "Oh, okay, here, time for you to check it out and test it." And like, you know, in a normal, like an agile situation, you would have iterations where you could know if things are going wrong, if they're not going the way that you want them to go, or to pivot, and you would know that sooner instead of at the very end when the person's like, "Here is your deliverables. I'm now going to go this way." Oh, you want an entirely different thing?
Oh,
Well, just go back to Fiverr, click the button to rehire me, and we'll start the process over again.
right.
And then they're in the same boat of, "Oh my gosh, we just spent all this money."
Right.
And then that goes back to point number one, lack of clear requirements.
Right. Oh, we've been burned. Oh. Oh, not really. So how to prevent that, right?
Hire a software development company.
Yeah, make sure when you go to hire somebody, you know that they're doing project management for it.
Right. So at the very least, right, no matter how small a project is, we still at least use a Kanban board.
Yeah.
Right. We still at least we have templates set up. We've got, you know, processes in place already. Right. So no matter how small a project is, we can have a project in our project management tool stood up in minutes, right?
Yeah.
We get things assigned out. Things already have, you know, length of time tied to them. Large projects move into more of an agile Scrum type methodology, right? Or like you said, pushing out, you know, updates every 2 weeks, or doing, you know, Scrum meetings every week, right, with our client partners, right? So just, you know, establishing some type of project management methodology, no matter how small the project is going to help you prevent this nasty number 2 of poor project management, right?
We'll do it for you.
Yeah, or just hire Manila.
Easy solution.
Manila.com/free consultation, I think it is.
Sounds about right.
Or contact
Is it
us.
free
Or
consultation or
contact us.
free dash consultation? I never know.
Free-consultation.
That one always trips me up, but I know munello.com/contact us.
Is
We'll put it in the show notes.
Is it contact-us? It is.
It is too early in the morning to be quizzing me about this.
It's 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
What this conversation
It is not 1 p.m. in the afternoon.
is, we need some redirects so that
I need more
contact
coffee
us
is
goes
what
to
that
contact
goes down
us.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Not the redirects, but yeah.
So we hope you've got your snacks and you're ready to geek out with us on this number 3, right? Which is inadequate testing.
This is kind of a pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
Please hit me with it.
Okay, so testing is very important. We can talk about how important testing is.
Oh,
But-
Jason, why don't you go ahead?
Okay, great. So, but I'm going to talk about my pet peeve first. My pet peeve is when you're going through a project and for whatever reason, you know, new requirements come up or new things get added, but deadlines can't change, and the thing that goes first is testing. The thing that gets knocked out, we got to shorten our time period. It's always testing. It's never like pushing the deadline forward. It's never like any other aspect of the thing. Like testing always gets squished, and I feel like when that happens, inadequate testing doesn't allow you to find the problems that are going to hit your users. The users are going to find all the problems in the first place.
Mhm.
But if you can hedge some of that, if you can get ahead of it, and that's what testing allows you to do, you can kind of cut that off at the bend and prevent some of that from happening. And I find that testing always gets the cutoff, the hammer. That's my pet peeve about
I
testing.
mean, there's only so much AI and automated testing that you can put into a system, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's, and especially lower budget projects don't get much of the goods in terms of automated end-to-end user testing
Yeah.
applied to them, right? So often it's actual human beings clicking around in the web app, right, or the mobile app, downloading it, testing it, right? And if there isn't, like you said, isn't enough time to kind of tinker around with it, and you deploy that to production or put it in the Play stores, and you've got 1,000 people using the app on day one, or 10,000 people using the app on day one, all of a sudden, why is this problem happening? Oh, I don't know. We had 5 days of testing in the timeline, and
You did not test it.
that got
squished to 2 days. And,
right.
One of those days alone is communication, how to access the app, how to figure it out, and then wait for the employees or whoever is testing it to finally get to it and start doing it. And by then, it's the end, so they have to submit feedback or however the testing information is going to be gathered, and they rush it, and then you don't get full, app looks great.
Yeah, right.
Everything was fine. I didn't test everything, but I accessed the login screen and I could log in. Awesome.
Done.
App works.
Check.
Didn't we have a situation where we had a website testing for about a few weeks, and the client just did not care, and just it's not our job to constantly remind the client, hey, this isn't testing, you need to be testing this. And it came down to the testing was done, and they're like, oh, by the way, this is a problem now. Then what? What happens in that situation? Because I know we've had that happen, and I know that's probably not the only time that has happened with a client.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, software is never done.
No.
Right? There's always
There's always going to be something.
Packages that get updated, or versions of modules on the server that progress. Every quarter, every 6 months, every year, a new version of a massive technology updates, right? And there's always random pieces of software that get used to get part of the larger application that just get out of date, right? And all of a sudden you can no longer filter the table, or this button no longer works. And it's like, well, it's been a year and a half since we've done anything on your application, right?
No.
But I guess to answer your point, I mean, it depends. Sometimes, we're good stewards to our clients, and sometimes we'll just get in and just take care of it, right? Sometimes we have maintenance and optimization support, right? Contracts where we're in there, an allotted amount of hours a month to go in and take care of those things, to prevent those things from happening.
Yeah.
Therefore, we can get ahead of stuff like that, right? But
I know what you're talking about with that, and we have, when we develop a plan for a software project, we have very clear periods of time that each of the things is going to happen. So this is the testing time, right? Mm-hmm. And if we did tell the client, we are in testing. Are you guys testing? What's going on? And we see what is tested and what's not tested, right?
Oh, do you?
So sometimes we could go in and we can see if a user gets created. We can go in, we can see if this API is accessed or that, just depending on the services that we're using. Okay. And so we can see if someone didn't go through the app and test the thing and do the things. So, and we
You're monitoring.
we can tell clients all day long to make testing a very important thing.
You're monitoring the project.
We're monitoring the project, exactly, but it's ultimately up to them to do that. And in that particular case, that caused a pushback in the deliverable, right? And that wasn't our fault. That wasn't us. Maybe we shouldn't get too further into it. But that wasn't it was because the client wasn't able to do their part of the thing and didn't put respect on it, and that sucks because then that's a bad experience for them, right?
Mhm.
Even though it's not our fault, they probably felt like it was a bad experience with us because of it. So
The point I was trying to make out of that was how important testing is, because if you're not testing, then the testing phase was over and they're like, oh wait, I didn't test it though. There is this problem, and it's just like, well, that's why this phase is here. If you're not going through and testing, you're going to find I'm not saying they're going to find a problem, but think of it as a house inspection. You can't just buy a house sight unseen. You shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna find a problem.
Yeah.
You're going to find a small crack. You're going to find something that needs some type of cover up. Nothing is perfect. So go through the testing phase.
we don't cover up problems.
Yeah, no.
So
But yes,
that
I
was
agree.
that
I
was
agree.
my summary.
Yep. So preventative measures, right? We brought it up before, right? We definitely have a lot of, automation and AI hooked into what's called the pipeline that gets code from these computers up to the cloud, if you call it,
Mhm.
right? Involved in there where it's scanning for vulnerabilities, it's doing a little bit of unit testing, it's doing, sometimes integration type stuff, right? But human beings still need to click this thing, right?
Yeah.
Still need to log in and get to a dashboard and open up their user panel and get to payment methods and see their payment methods and add a new one, right?
And it can't be the developer that is working on the project because they may have already internalized the kinks or the things
Mhm.
that might be happening that they have like long since forgotten about or not aren't paying attention to because of their familiarity with the project.
Right.
So like going into it, understand that you're going to need to invest people resources into getting it on their phones, going to the sites, going to the staging sites, clicking through the things and using every part of the app, even if it's something as mundane as making sure you're able to delete your account appropriately. Like
Mhm.
that's
Right.
super important to do.
Just like how when someone writes a paper and they reread it a million times and they're like, yeah, it looks great. But they're the ones that wrote it.
Yeah.
They know how it's supposed to sound. But
Right.
then you are going to read it and they're like, I don't know what you're trying to say here. And you're like, oh, well,
Yeah, I read your paper mock and it makes absolutely no
Yeah.
sense.
that makes
You
sense.
should probably rewrite it.
That also makes sense.
All right, ready for the next one?
Yeah.
That's good.
Hit me with it.
This is always an interesting one. Number 4, ignoring user feedback. Right, so the web app's been built, deployed, tested.
Mhm.
Now it's on production.
Okay.
Right, actual customers of theirs are starting to use it.
Mhm.
Right, and the users are supplying feedback.
They're saying it sucks.
They're saying, hey, we need, it'd be cool if this thing also did this, right? Or I'm trying to do this over here and it's not working, or, right, like
Mhm.
it could be whatever,
Yeah.
right? But failing to listen or failing to give your users a way to even give you feedback
Mhm.
is number 1, an issue. Number 2 is when that feedback's coming in and you're not addressing it, right? That's where another problem. And this really stems from the beginning of the project, right? Defining requirements. Part of that is defining what your minimum viable product is. What is the smallest amount of, software or features that need to go to production to start generating revenue or at least delight the customer, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
And oftentimes companies will want to shoehorn every single feature that they thought of into the MVP. And you don't want to do that, because if you've got 12 features that have nothing to do with generating revenue or delighting the customer, put them in the backlog, right?
Yeah.
On the back burner, push the rest to production and then listen to the feedback,
Mhm.
right? The feedback may come back that those other features were never even needed in the first place.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Or the feedback might be coming in, and as some of those features that you had in your backlog now need to be deployed to production or get worked on deployed to production, right? And you're continuing to delight the customer.
Yeah. So that this kind of relates a little bit to testing in that
Yep.
in your beta test or whatever, sometimes it makes sense to have non-company people test your app
Sure.
before it gets released. For exactly this reason, right? Like you don't ever know exactly what your user is going to want after your product is made.
Right.
So like you come up with your project, it comes out, it's released, you get this awesome user base of 1,000 plus 2,000, 40,000 people using your app. And you have all these plans that you wanted in that minimal viable product that maybe your software developer advised you not to do. So you've got all these plans going on, but then your users are telling you that they want something completely different because they're using the app, they like it, they just want to go in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
You got to listen to that. You got to go in the direction that your users want you to go because they're literally the ones that are going to continue using your app.
Right.
Forget about all your other stuff that doesn't make sense for them and start going in the direction of what does make sense to them.
Right.
This happens a lot. I know this is not exactly what we do, but this happens a lot in live service video game development, where like a developer will come out with a patch to a game and like this is the new expansion and it's all so great, and then they'll get a lot of feedback from a player base when the product is already live that they don't like it, and it's like this is not what we want in our game, and then the developer has the choice of either sticking with their guns and saying no, I'm the video game developer, I know what you want, I know what this video game should be, or listening to the user and starting to develop in that direction so that they can meet the needs of the user. If you don't meet the needs of the user, people are not going to play your game. People are not going to use your app.
So I was taught this in college. I wasn't taught a lot, but this is one thing I do remember is things have shifted. Way back when, many, many years ago, it was companies would put out a product and they would tell the user, this is what you need, this you should buy it, and here is why. And the consumers would listen. Now it's the consumers are telling the companies, we want this, and the companies have to listen.
Yeah.
So, to that point.
Yeah.
How cool
it's
is
the
that?
same thing.
I mean, how cool is that?
Weird shift, but yeah.
Weird shit, but hey, we're a company. What would you like? Oh, you want that widget? Okay, yeah, go build that widget.
Hey,
Yeah,
this guy wants that widget.
Yeah, we got this widget for sale. Come buy it. Oh, look, people are buying it.
So
Wow,
if
crazy.
a company is saying so due to that shift, if a company is saying no, we want this, well, if you're completely ignoring what the consumers are saying, the consumers are going to say we're going to go somewhere else to a company that is going to listen to.
Yeah. So the obvious fix is A, have a good channel of communication with your users, and B, actually listen to their feedback when they come in. And it doesn't mean like every individual person you have to bend backwards
No.
to include their feature.
Right.
But,
Right.
30% of your user base want this feature. Maybe it's worth considering
Right.
to go in that direction.
Mhm.
So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it could be very simple. I mean, have a support form or a feedback form in your software for the first 6 months while it's live, or the first year, right? And that spits an email, or maybe that dumps directly into like a very simple Google Sheet, right? And someone's just ducking into that Google Sheet every so often and grouping stuff into different buckets, and then after the first 6 months or 12 months, you start to roll out, right? And it's
Another aspect of that is if you don't have those forums or those methods of communication, especially if your app gets really big, people are going to go to the internet to say those same things.
Mm-hmm.
So then they're going to be dogging your application to all of their friends and other people, and then that's less potential customers.
when they go to the internet, does that include going to X?
Absolutely not. Nobody goes to X.
No one goes there.
No. Elon Musk goes to X.
Got it.
That's it. I don't ever go to X once a day.
Are we ready for the last common mistake?
I am ready.
Man,
No, wait, I'm not ready.
this is huge.
Hold on. Okay, I'm ready.
Are you ready? Are you sure?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
something I had to prepare for.
Number 5, underestimating or not even planning for maintenance and support.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about pet peeves.
Yeah,
This
big
is-
time.
Matt's about to drop some knowledge.
Big time over here. I mean, it's shocking how often this comes up. it's shocking how companies will invest so much time and thought into getting an app built or some type of software built for their business and don't even think about maintaining it or providing support for it once it's up.
Wait, I thought you just build an app or build a website or build a mobile app and you just go, we're done.
We're done.
Well, Matt had mentioned earlier.
That's not how this works.
There are situations where you use other packages or you use other third-party services, and those things do suddenly stop working every now and then. AWS, very famous for this. Sometimes they just go down, and then entire software platforms just stop working. And if you don't have a maintenance plan to figure those things out, contact AWS. Maybe AWS changed the way that they do something with one of their services. You need a maintenance plan or a person to go in and make changes to the code to upgrade that or to make it work.
To be abreast on changes that are happening with your software, with the technologies that are in your software.
Yeah.
Keeping an eye on the industry. I mean, there's so much going on. I mean,
and then you get yourself into a situation where suddenly you have this code base, you have this product, it needs to work, something fails, something goes down, you contact that company that did the software for you, you don't have a maintenance plan with them, and they say, we're booked out through the summer, man. Like, we can't, we don't have the resources right now to expend on the maintenance thing.
Then you have to find someone else.
Then you got to find someone else who needs to familiarize themselves with code base. It's just a whole big thing.
Then they want to make changes because they don't think that what that other company did is right, or they're trying to get additional money out of you.
Yeah, right. So I mean, we've been relatively successful in educating our client partners on the importance of maintaining and optimizing the software after it's up. Mm-hmm. Right, because there's so many things that are just out of your control. I mean, it's more than just fixing bugs and like listening to feedback and like pushing out features, right? Like obviously you still need to be doing that, right? But I mean, there's still like technologies, and if your app is connected to like even like an API that billions of people use all over the planet, that runs through versions, right? And if your app's been running for a year connected to that API might be sundowning because of a new version, right? So you got to open up the software, disconnect that version, disconnect to the new version that's going to be fine, right? We
have talked about that with an API service provider, and they were very upfront. They're like, you need to be able to handle if our API is changing in 6 months to a year, like. That's going to be a thing. Like, you're launching your app in 3 months, well, in 9 months to a year, our API is going to change, and you're going to need to adjust for that. And if you don't have a maintenance plan, if you don't have something set, maybe we're not available to do it. Or,
even if you have a low code or even like a no code solution that you have like connected for your business, I mean, integrations go down. Right? Integrations stop working, right? So even if it isn't like raw code, right? Like an actual custom software application, if you've stitched together, bolted on many different pieces to a no-code solution.
Cough, cough, WordPress.
or many others. There are problems that happen, even in that world, right? So turning a blind eye or not even paying attention to it is a bad idea.
So what you're saying is, don't start a project and just think I can just walk away.
Right. If you think, if you get this timeline from a dev company, it's going to take 8 months to build the software or 4 months to build the software. It isn't over in 8 months or 4 months. Like, you need to realize that monthly you need to have, or annually you need to have some type of thing going on to make sure that your software that you spent all the money on for that 4 months or 8 months is maintained and optimized and continues to grow.
So then, to what Jason was saying earlier, we hired Jason's cousin off the street that just graduated from college, and he built me this website, and then he got hired to this big company. Well, now my website needs work. Now what? Do I go to him?
We would have to go to him because you likely let him set up everything. So everything is probably in his name on his credit card, attached to his email address.
His
And
AWS account.
his AWS
his
account.
CMS account.
Right.
Wow, this
Yeah.
has seemed to be a really big problem
Yeah.
for me.
Yep. You're up Shit's Creek without a paddle. Right?
It's a good thing I did not do that.
Hey,
Where's my phone?
how do I access my Google Tag Manager?
Yeah.
Look at Matt's Google Tag Manager. It's got 75 different companies from the past.
Yeah. Yep. They're all in there.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the 5. Ready? We're going to repeat them. Lack of clear requirements, right? Poor project management, right? Inadequate testing,
Mm-hmm.
ignoring user feedback, and underestimating maintenance and support.
5 things you can do as a software company to improve the experience of your clients.
And their customers.
Mm-hmm.
Just their clients, so that they fire you and come to us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, hire Manolo. Yeah. Any other parting words? Phrases, ideas, concerns, jokes?
My goal is always to break Monica, and I think I'm very successful today.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think this was fun. This was good.
This was a good one.
Cool.
All right.
Outro.